The hypocrites, which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the daunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Good morning and welcome to Open Conversation on Atlantic Television Network. Open Conversation is the network's flagship political platform through which trending political news, events and stories are discussed with stakeholders. Through these conversations, ATN uses political talks about specific issues, party system and actor to explore hope and engender positive impacts to the society. Today on Open Conversation, we'll look at the stories. First, Rivers State. Fubara sacks commissioners affected by Supreme Court ruling, and court dismisses suits against Tinubu's emergency rule. INEC denies rejecting Ehia's assembly resignation claim. And on politics, PDP still united, no crisis in the party, Olugunawa says. And on politics, APC Atiku accuses APC of destabilizing PDP with senior members, and Atiku still denies plans to step down for any aspirant. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll delve right into the show. Do not go away.
Representing people, Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.
Access to our money will look in the bank.
She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we at it?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the daunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people, Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.
Access to our money will look in the bank.
She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we at it?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the daunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people, Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.
Access to our money will look in the bank.
She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we at it?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the daunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people, Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.
Access to our money will look in the bank.
She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we at it?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the daunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people, Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.
Access to our money will look in the bank.
She said 3,000 is 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we at it?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the daunting. Who
people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Access to our money will prove in his hand. POS operator, she sent me down the rice 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Access to our money will prove in his hand. POS operator, she sent me down the rice 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Access to our money will prove in his hand. POS operator, she sent me down the rice 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Access to our money will prove in his hand. POS operator, she sent me down the rice 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Access to our money will prove in his hand. POS operator, she sent me down the rice 1,000 to collect 3,000 naira. Where are we heading to?
I've always said there are two sets of people on earth, the oppressors and the oppressed. And in between are the cowards and the hypocrites. Which are you?
No matter how tough the challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
What Nigerians need now is not about the taunting. Who can come and salvage us from where we are?
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of Justice.
Access to our money will prove in his hand. POS operator, she sent me down the rice.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Joining me on Open Conversation this morning is Ndamzi Ekulo, Esquire. Ndamzi Ekulo is a legal practitioner and also a conflict resolution expert. Good morning, Ndamzi, and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Laurentia. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
And on to the story. Rivers State Governor Similaye Fubara has dismissed commissioners and public officers affected by the Supreme Court judgment that nullified decisions of the Victor Okojombo-led faction of the State Assembly. He made the announcement in Port Harcourt during a valedictory section with his cabinet to mark Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary. Fubara thanked the outgoing officials for their service, reaffirmed his commitment to renewed governance, and urged Nigerians to support President Bola Tinubu's efforts towards peace and national progress. He also called for reflection on the lessons of the state's recent political crisis and emergency rule. The Supreme Court had earlier recognized the Martins Amehule-led faction loyal to former governor and FCT Minister Nyesom Wike as the authentic Rivers Assembly. This ruling voided approvals given by the Okojombo faction, leading to the disengagement of affected commissioners. What do you make of this story, Ndamzi?
Thank you very much, Laurentia. The governor of Rivers State, and as well every governor in Nigeria under Section 192 of the 1999 Constitution has the power to appoint commissioners and other appointees of government. But the Rivers matter was a peculiar one because the Supreme Court declared no governance here in Rivers State. So the commissioners in the first instance never existed in the eyes of the law because the House of Assembly members that screened them didn't meet the requisite two-thirds majority as allowed by the Constitution. So I commend the governor anyway for dismissing them at this point, because that would have come earlier when that judgment was given by the Supreme Court. But save for the emergency rule, maybe he didn't find time to hold such valedictory section with them to thank them for the time they put in with him in government. So, but in my view as a lawyer, I believe that the commissioners never existed in the eyes of the law, because you can't put something on nothing and think it will stand. They never existed. Okojombo were never the Speaker of Rivers State House of Assembly in the eyes of the law. The nominated commissioners by the governor then were never existed. The only commissioners that existed in the eyes of the law during this tenure of Governor Sim Fubara were those who Martins and co screened, and the governor confirmed their appointment, allotted portfolios, but when the political crisis began, they resigned. Those were the validly appointed commissioners in the state. So these guys that he just dismissed and thanked never existed. They were never commissioners.
Looking at the implication of this scenario that played out, it also means that every other thing done by Edison here when he was Speaker and Okojombo as well are both null and void.
Yes, of course. Edison was never Speaker of Rivers State House of Assembly. The Supreme Court was very emphatic on that judgment that the only recognized Speaker Rivers State House of Assembly was Martin Amehule. Edison never existed. Okojombo never existed. They were mere members of Rivers State House of Assembly as at then.
Okay. Now, moving forward, on the September 18th, as the Rivers State House of Assembly resumed their functions, one of the things they did was to also call on the governor to present the budget and all, as well as commissioner nominees for appointment. One would say, to a large extent, if these sacked commissioners did perform in any way, did perform well during their time, even though not recognized by the law, could also be, their names could be resubmitted if the governor so wishes.
Yes, of course. It is just the sole prerogative power of the governor to appoint whomever he so wishes, whomever he thinks has the capacity to man whichever ministry he wants to allot the person. So if the governor tomorrow nominates Laurentia to be Commissioner for Women Affairs, it stands. Nobody has the locus to say Laurentia won't be, because the Constitution is very, very clear that he alone, under Section 192 sub 1, have the powers under the 1999 Constitution as amended in 2023 to nominate such persons to such a exalted position.
All right, very well. Federal High Court in Abuja has dismissed a suit filed against President Bola Tinubu over his March 18, 2025 proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State. The proclamation led to the suspension of Governor Similaye Fubara, the State House of Assembly, and the appointment of an administrator to run the state for 6 months. The case was initiated by a group of indigents led by Belema Briggs, who argued that Tinubu's actions violated their democratic rights. Justice James Omotosho ruled that the plaintiffs lacked the legal standing to challenge the proclamation, noting that they neither suffered greater injury than other citizens nor had the authority of the State Attorney General to file the case. He also held that only the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction to determine the validity of a presidential proclamation of emergency rule. The court therefore struck out the matters as frivolous and baseless. The judge further upheld Tinubu's claim that the emergency rule was necessary to prevent a breakdown of law and order in Rivers State. He maintained that the president acted within his constitutional powers under Section 305 of the Emergency Act by suspending elected officials and appointing an administrator. According to him, the proclamation was lawful and aimed at averting anarchy and ensuring public safety. Interesting one there. I am interested to know your position on this matter, considering that you are a legal practitioner. So, what do you make of this position by Justice James Omotosho of Federal High Court?
Thank you very much. Nigeria is a country governed by laws. And in bringing actions to court, there are three major factors that must be considered by a lawyer and also parties seeking declarative reliefs from the court or claims of all sorts from the court. You need to first of all look at the course of action. In this matter you want to bring before the court, is there really a reasonable course of action? That's the first step. And what do we mean by reasonable course of action? Reasonable course of action is simply those things that will enable a claimant get its claim from the court. So when you look at those set of facts, you look at them very well that truly a course of action arose, then you can approach the court. Then the second factor one must consider before bringing an action to court is the locus standi. It is a Latin phrase which simply means capacity to sue, or the right to bring an action to court, or the right to appear before the court and be heard. So when you consider all this, you look at the locus standi. This party bringing this action to court, does he or she possess the right to sue or not? Or is this person suing on a representative capacity or not? Then the third factor is jurisdiction. The jurisdiction is simply the power of a court to hear a matter and determine that matter by way of delivering judgment. So when a court looks at its jurisdiction and finds out that the matter before it lacks the requisite jurisdiction, it will decline jurisdiction and struck out the matter. So in this Rivers emergency rule, the judgment of Justice Omotosho is not offensive in any way, or it never authorized the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because Section 251, which talks about the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court, is very clear as to cases which the Federal High Court can adjudicate on. Cases like currency, cases like immigration, cases like arms dealing. There are so many of them, like visa-related issues, passports. Those are requisite cases the Federal High Court can hear and have jurisdiction on. But on matters concerning the federal government and the state, or the president and the governor, as the case may be, Section 232 of the 1999 Constitution, subsection 1, is very clear that Supreme Court has original jurisdiction to hear matters between states and the federal government, or matters between the National Assembly or the federal government. Okay, so the judgment of Justice Omotosho of Federal High Court is in line with the provisions of the 1999 Constitution. But you see, because of the perception of Nigerians as to what has been happening in the judiciary, so when judgments like this are given, people will say, oh, they have come again, they have favored a particular party and all that. No. This judgment is in line with the law. It's in line with the provision of Section 251 of the 1999 Constitution. The judge in that judgment went ahead and referred them to the Supreme Court. We can hear where the judge said that it is only the Supreme Court that can litigate on this matter. And the judge is clear on that, following the provision of Section 232 of the 1999 Constitution, which confers original jurisdiction on the Supreme Court.
Now, so in your opinion, the judgment of Justice James Omotosho is in line with the Constitution on the issue of jurisdiction, correct?
Yes, so on the issue of jurisdiction, on the issue of locus standi, and also on the issue of course of action. Yes, a reasonable course of action arose in that matter, which was simply whether the president has the powers to suspend the elected governor and the elected House of Assembly members. That's a reasonable course of action. But why that action failed is because the parties who brought the action to court were incompetent.
All right. Now, we are looking at the course of action now, which right now is my interest. While delivering the judgment, you know, he also mentioned that the president had the right under Section 305 of the Constitution to suspend, not declaring state of emergency now, right? But I'm looking at the suspension of elected officials, that's the executive and the state assembly. Do you agree with Justice James Omotosho that the president had the right to suspend them?
Well, at this point, that is a question of the Supreme Court to determine.
But you're saying that his judgment is in line.
See, we are looking at, you see, when an incompetent party brings an action to court, that action is liable to be struck out. So the Federal High Court did the right thing by delivering that judgment yesterday and striking out the matter. Now, he referred them to the Supreme Court. Now, it behoves on the proper parties to that suit, who would have been the governor of Rivers State, Governor Similaye Fubara, or the House of Assembly members, to bring that action. But at this point,
the PDP governors took this matter to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is yet to give judgment 6 months down the line.
That's true. The PDP governors bringing that action to court, I may want to say something, but I don't want to, preempt the position of the Supreme Court. But going by what we said before, proper parties to a suit are the competent parties to bring an action to court. If an incompetent party brings an action to court, that action is liable to fail, unless on a representative capacity, when the person who is originally the party to the suit authorizes you by way of attorney, then you can do so. But when you are not a party that is directly affected, you bring an action to court, it will fail.
Now, the question I asked earlier, which you did not answer me, rather you now referred to Supreme Court. I am asking you this question because Justice James Omotosho, while delivering judgment, said that the president had the right to suspend elected officials, while declaring state of emergency, and his reason is to avert, breakdown of law and order. Yes, under 305, the law, the Constitution provides for state of emergency if there is an actual or imminent threat, right, to peace, or if there is a threat or an actual breakdown of law and order. So one could say, all right, the president, declared state of emergency in line with the Constitution. to avert, further breakdown of law and order. But now, nowhere in that constitution does the president have the power to suspend elected officials. This is where my interest lies, suspension of elected officials. And Justice James Omotoso is saying that the action of the president is constitutional. I want that to make sense to me. But I'm asking you these questions because you actually said that everything that Justice Omotoso said, in line with that judgment, it aligns with the Constitution. So this is where my interest is.
Yes, for purpose of clarity, in every judicial pronouncement, there are the actual judgment and obiter. Okay? If you look at the excerpts of that judgment, though the certified true copy is yet to be out, but if you look at the excerpts of that judgment, Justice Omotoso based his rulings on 3 major factors: cause of action, parties to the suit, and jurisdiction, which was what we recapped earlier, that before an action is brought to court, a lawyer does its work by considering these 3 factors. Okay, so he may have made other statements by way of obiter, but in my position and what is written in the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, we can't find anywhere the Constitution authorizes the president to suspend an elected governor. The president does not possess that power. We posited this from the onset. The president never had the power under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to suspend an elected governor, an elected House of Assembly member. He doesn't have the power, but let's be patient with the Supreme Court.
Now, if you say that the president does not have the power, and that nowhere in the Constitution was the president given the power. Now, one would say that, first question, River State's crisis, the peculiarity of River State crisis, was it covered in Section 305 of the Constitution?
The peculiarity of what happened in River State wasn't covered at all.
Now, if
that section, but going by the provisions of 305, the president had the powers to invoke emergency rule.
Now,
okay, but the area he doesn't have or he couldn't have invoked was suspending.
Now we are coming down there. Now, if the peculiarity of River State crisis was not covered in 305, one would say that the president, is it safe to say the president cannot be accused of breaking a law that does not exist? One, Section 305 provides for emergencies like war, situations like war, natural disaster, threat to economy, breakdown of law and order and all of that. But it does not in any way cover political crisis where there is no government, according to Supreme Court judgment. Because probably the Constitution never envisaged a situation where a state will be without government, right? So the 305 of the Constitution did not cover where the executive and state House of Assembly are at each other's throats. That's one. Now, just like the Constitution is silent on the peculiarity of River State's crisis, or the Constitution is silent on political crisis, the Constitution is also silent on suspension of elected officials if they are the arrowhead of this crisis. Let me ask you another question. Can the president be said to have broken the law if there was no law he broke? Like, I'm trying to look at it like there was no Constitution anywhere that the president broke. So can he be accused of breaking a law that never existed?
Well, it is a known fact that nobody is above the law. The position of Section 305 and also the action of the president in overreaching his powers in Section 305 authorizes completely the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Which part of the Constitution did he overreach?
he overreached the part that, you know, where we are yet to find out where he assumed the powers to suspend Governor Fubara.
Yes, I know, but the
members.
question would be, which exact section of the Constitution in 305 did he overreach?
That particular position is not captured anywhere.
Then if it is not, that's the question. If it is not captured in the Constitution,
authorized that section.
Wait, if it is not captured in the Constitution,
he took an action.
Can he be said to have broken a law that in the first instance does not exist?
You can only determine that when he ceases to be president. Because the man is clothed with huge immunity. He's clothed with immunity that the law cannot touch him at this point. We see just recently Nicolas Sarkozy have just been sentenced as a result of an action he did, something he did while in office. So when the immunity eluded him, the law can catch up with him.
What I'm saying, in the case of, hold on, these people you're mentioning now, there were laws that they broke. And the long arm of the law got to them. In the case of President Bola Tinubu and Rivers State emergency, I am trying to see the law that the president broke. Now, what Justice James Omotosho, when he was speaking, he, in his obiter, like you said, he made allusion to averting disaster, which is covered in 305. In fact, the political crisis in Rivers State at some point became a threat to the economy of the nation, which is predominantly oil. And one could say that not only was that emergency, you know, declared by the president to avert disaster, it was also to prevent further breakdown of law and order that is a threat to the national economy. That is covered by the Constitution. Now, I am looking at the area of the emergency rule that is not covered by the Constitution. The governor, having enjoyed immunity as well, broke the law. And one could say these are the laws that the governor broke. We could say this is this, this is that, this is that. Now, the Rivers State House of Assembly were at some point recognized by the governor because of the issue of cross-carpeting, which of course, people could hold on to the Constitution to say this is what the argument is about. But in the case of the president, you're saying his actions were ultra-virus. And I'm trying to find out which part of the Constitution did he break? Because the Constitution, suspending or not suspending elected governors, governor and House of Assembly, does not exist. That is number one. And then number two, the president having the power or not having the power does not exist. And then number three, the state of the emergency declaration law in 305 does not cover political crisis, wherein the governor and the State House of Assembly, you know, are the arrowheads of the crisis that had plunged the state into a major conundrum. So if there are no laws that one could say he broke, can the president be said to have broken the Constitution? Now, if you say the president broke the Constitution, can you give me the section of the Constitution the president broke? I think it's simple enough.
Yes, the president did not break any section of the Constitution. But what he did was he only overreached that section by taking an action that was not captured in the Constitution. Okay. So, it's, in fact, see,
so he did not, long and short of the whole story is that he did not break
he did not break the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay. But he overreached his actions. See, one might look at this clearly, that what happened in Rivers State, the emergency declaration was just an intent for state capture. The president wanted to take full control of the state because of 2027. It's very clear. You see, Lonisha, Nigeria is becoming a playground.
When you say it was for state capture, now the question would be, there was attempt at political solution, yes?
We knew all that.
Did it work?
It never worked.
Good.
Supreme Court gave its judgment.
Hold on. Before Supreme Court gave its judgment, there have been judgments from the lower court to the appellate court. Did it work? It did not. And when Supreme Court gave its judgment, did it also work? It did not. In fact, at that point now, things degenerated to actual threats of impeachment. And on one hand, pipelines were now being
economic sabotage.
Exactly. Now, at the end of the day, how can you say it is a state capture when, in the first instance, there was no government, according to Supreme Court judgment?
Why?
So, if political solution failed, legal solution failed, what could have worked at that point in time?
Lonsha, why I posited that what happened in Rivers State, during the declaration of the emergency, it's an intent to capture political power in Rivers State is simple. The president couldn't have suspended the governor.
Okay, what should he have done that would have worked?
The president couldn't. See, you don't remove an elected governor from seat. He also was elected. The same way the governor was elected, he was elected too.
If the president had declared state of emergency and with the governor still seated and the House of Assembly still seated, would there have been solution?
Yes, of course.
Make it make sense to me.
When you declare emergency, you strip them of security. Yes, of course, that should be the right thing. Strip them of security, but they remain in power.
So now, will it stop impeachment from happening?
Yes,
good luck. When you talk of good luck, Ebele Jonathan, would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, of course.
We are
looking at Section 305 and declaration of emergency.
In the state where Goodluck Jonathan declared emergency is not the same.
Yes,
with that of Rivers State. So you cannot actually say this is what it is.
Don't also forget that we are looking at the section that authorizes the president to declare state of emergency. The scenario might be different, but wielding the power, where does this power,
now,
where does
which boils down to the question, let's just assume that the president had left them. Will it have stopped the impeachment from happening?
Impeachment is a legal process.
So hold on, the impeachment will still have happened.
Yeah,
good.
It's a constitutional process.
We are following your thoughts.
Yes.
The impeachment would have happened. Now, while that impeachment process is going on, the governor is stripped of security. The Rivers State House of Assembly members will be stripped of security as well, correct?
Yes, and the military will take over.
And then impeachment would have happened with everything that was going to play out.
No, Lonsha,
One would say, wouldn't that set the stage for a bloodshed that Rivers State would never have experienced?
No, I take exception to that. I take exception to that. If the president had declared the state of emergency in line with the provision of Section 305, that impeachment wouldn't go on.
Okay, what would have happened?
That impeachment wouldn't go on because emergency rule would have taken over. At that point, the governor will stay mute, the assembly will stay mute, and the military will overrun the state until the position is calm. At that point, legislative activities would have been either mute or suspended.
The legislative, according to the Constitution, the National Assembly legislates.
No, in this instance, no, we are looking at the position you took.
Wouldn't the National Assembly still be legislating?
No, in this position you took.
Okay, go ahead.
Don't forget you posited something. So we are
looking at your own position.
Yes.
If you're saying that they shouldn't have been suspended, which means they will still be in acting capacity.
Lonsha, let us.
Now you're saying no, that what they should have done is they would have just been mere figureheads, while military will now rule the states and National Assembly will legislate. Isn't that the same thing with what Ebas did?
No.
National Assembly. The only difference was that they were suspended.
Yeah, the only difference here were that the governor was suspended and removed from office temporarily,
as well as the
sole administrator was appointed to sit at the office of the governor. That was a different scenario altogether.
Okay.
That is the area I think the president or travail.
You also
the
forgot that the
constitution
State House of Assembly was suspended as
that,
well.
of course, they
And
were.
National Assembly took over. Which
So,
is in line with the
Which is
Constitution.
in line with the Constitution, because in a position where the state legislature couldn't do its job, the National Assembly will do it for them. Okay? But in this case, we are looking at emergency rule. The president has the powers to declare state of emergency, because the reason given by the president is cogent enough.
So now, I'm also trying to make it make sense. Now, if the governor was still there as the governor, you said he would be mute.
Yes, of course.
Ordinarily,
he should be stripped of his powers temporarily, but you can't vacate him from office, because he is an elected governor.
He will be stripped of his powers. He will be mute, stripped of his powers, but still occupying that office.
Yes.
Okay, more like a figurehead.
A figurehead. While the security agencies will be out there to maintain law and order.
Hold on, security agencies will be out there to maintain law and order. Now, in that instance, who pays salaries? The governor will still pay salaries.
Of course, you can't strip him. It is a
hold
constitutional
on.
power.
If that is
he
the
can
case,
only be removed there by death.
Hold on. If that is the case, how is that fair? If the Supreme Court judgment is upholding the position of the State House of Assembly, and the governor is being found guilty by the Supreme Court judgment, and clearly the Supreme Court says there is no government in the state, and even after that statement is made, the governor did not, hasten to do the right thing, and then threat of impeachment starts. And then you're saying that state of emergency should have been declared, and in that state of emergency, of course, National Assembly will legislate for the state, thereby suspending the functions of the State House of Assembly. Meanwhile, the governor will still exercise his powers as the governor of the states, but the only difference is that there will be increased military presence in River State. How fair is that? Make it make sense to me how that could have been a solution to River State crisis. Because now the same person who is found guilty is being shielded by the same constitution, while the people who have been on the receiving end of that person will be suspended. Make it make sense to me, like their functions will be suspended.
Yes.
I need you to balance this and
Yes.
tell me where there is equity and fairness in the constitutional provision that you are proposing.
Laurentia, the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria is still a working document. We have not gotten it right with the Constitution. I think what has happened in Rivers State is also an eye-opener to the National Assembly, letting them know that they have more work to do. What has happened was never captured in the Constitution, but it happened. It happened. We have even seen a situation where the highest court of the land have remained silent since the PDP governors filed that suit. But other suits that were recently filed, they have conclusively given judgment on them. We know all that. What we are trying to say is, jurisprudentially, the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria have a lot of flaws. The National Assembly still need work to do, still have a lot to do in our Constitution. And also, it is also an eye-opener to politicians in Nigeria. And also a time for the president also to reflect on some of the actions he took during this emergency time. Because with the position of the law is very clear as to Section 305. He never had that power to suspend Governor Fubara, because Governor Fubara was elected the same way President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was elected by the people. So it is only the people that can say no by way of voting him out, or, God forbid, by death or by impeachment. That's why I said impeachment is a legal process, a constitutional process. So if Governor Fubara would have been impeached, I don't think anything wrong.
But then one would say to a large extent that in view of everything that has happened in Rivers State, well, to a large extent, the controversial move by the president had brought some semblance of sanity in Rivers State, and I am hoping and trusting that all the parties involved, having gone through what we went through in the past 6 months, would not want a repeat of that. And as we move on to the next story, like I had posited and asked you earlier, if the president, if there were no constitutional, like you said earlier, the president did not break any law. There was no constitution.
He did not
one
commit
could
any
say
crime
that he broke. So if there was no constitution in section 305 that one could say the president broke, then, well, you...
Nothing will catch up with him after his tenure.
You're using semantics. He said he didn't break the constitution, but he overreached.
He overreached
He
his
did
powers.
not break the constitution, but he overreached
his powers.
Well, I think Supreme Court will have to, differentiate that for us.
Yes, whether he did or not, but I still have my reservations on that judgment, which I can't say now, pending the Supreme Court judgment.
Well, the interesting thing still remains that...
Interesting times ahead.
Interesting times ahead. And in Rivers State, I still believe that even currently in Rivers State, there are still interesting times. Things are, it's not in my place to bring to the public, but then, interesting times ahead. Moving forward, Independent National Electoral Commission has refuted reports that it rejected the resignation of Edison Ehe, former member representing Ahoda East Constituency 2 in the Rivers State House of Assembly. Ehe resigned his seat during the state's political crisis to assume office as Chief of Staff to Governor Similaye Fubara. Reports had quoted Resident Electoral Commissioner Professor Gabriel Yomere as saying Ehe still remained a legislator. In a clarification issued by Acting Head of Voter Education and Publicity, Geraldine Ekalemu, INEC stressed that the REC's comments were misinterpreted and did not represent the Commission's official stance. The body emphasized that only its national headquarters can determine whether a by-election should be conducted following due notification from the constitutionally recognized legislative authority. INEC maintained that it had no power to accept or reject a legislator's resignation. The commission stated it will only act when the Rivers State House of Assembly formally declares Ehe's seat vacant and transmits such notice, after which it will organize a by-election in line with the Constitution and Electoral Act. Now, before I ask further questions, I want to know what you have to say about the story.
Yes, this story is basically as of law and of facts. Section 306, subsection 1, talks about resignation. Okay, and Edison Ehe resigned his position as a legislator to take up appointment as the Chief of Staff to the Governor of Rivers State. That resignation is lawful.
Okay.
And constitutional, right? But another side of the matter there is simple. As at the time he resigned, the House of Assembly was not duly constituted. There were crises. He had taken over as the factional Speaker of the House. So the resignation at that time was shaky, and it was addressed to Independent National Electoral Commission. And the Constitution in Section 306 sub 1 is simple, that anybody who either elected or appointed, as the case may be, you resign and send the letter duly signed by you to the necessary authority. It is the law. So INEC has come up with its clarification that only its national headquarters will determine when by-election should be held. So in my own position, I am taking a position calling on INEC to go ahead and conduct election in Abuja East.
Now, the question would be, first of all, who did Edison Ehe resign to? who did he submit the resignation letter to?
To INEC.
To INEC. Now, when one is looking at the provision of
Section 306
of
sub 1.
resignation and declaring of seats vacant is done by the Speaker
Yes,
of the House.
but Section 306 sub 1 never said the Speaker will declare his seat
Hold on.
vacant. That is not the position of...
Who reads the...
No, the
letter?
section said the person resigning will resign and it will be duly signed by him and sent to the necessary authority that elected him. Okay. So in this case, who conducted the election that made constituents elect members of the House of Assembly? Independent National Electoral Commission.
Now,
so if you look at the provision of the Constitution, there was nowhere in 306 the Constitution said
he must submit,
to the Speaker and that the Speaker will declare his seat vacant. Don't forget that this is a case of resignation. It is not a case of improper conduct of an assembly member. It is just simply a case of an official saying, I am no more interested in this position, I am quitting. Resignation is as of law and of fact, as captured in Section 306 sub 1. Nigerians can look it up.
Now, the question is, INEC is saying that from what the INEC staff is saying, INEC is saying that the Rivers State House of Assembly has to communicate them.
Well, like I posited, that this is a question of law and of fact. INEC on its own reserves the right also to approach the court for interpretation of that section of the law before it takes its final position. I think that is the reason why INEC as an agency of government have its own legal department. Okay? So the legal department can approach the court for interpretation of Section 306 before they can act. I think that's the proper thing to do instead of waiting for its national headquarters to communicate or the House of Assembly writing them.
Another thing is this. Do not forget that at some point, the River State House of Assembly, through the Speaker, Martin Samehule, had declared the seats of these people vacant. And Edisinehi, Okojombo, Sokari Goodboy, and one other person. I don't know, is that still valid? Is that still standing? Because I am yet to see where all of them have gathered, in one plenary. Have you seen Okojombo, Sokari Goodboy, and others since the resumption of the River State House of Assembly? Have you seen them with the lawmakers in a plenary?
No, I have not seen them or cited them anywhere with other members of the River State House of Assembly. But to set the record straight, the Assembly didn't declare their seat vacant, but suspended them for improper conduct, which is in line with the rules of the House of Assembly River State. That suspension was in line with the rules. So it behoves on the leadership of the Assembly, Martin Samehule and other leaders of the Assembly, to reconsider
whether to
their
bring
position,
them in or
whether to lift the Constitution and call them in or
to lift
not.
the suspension and call them back.
Yes, of course, because one shouldn't forget that before the political crisis, there were improper conducts as were accused by the Assembly on Sokari Goodboy, Edison, and Okojombo. Okay, so that led to their suspension. And that suspension was there until the crisis began. It was never lifted. So now, but I think as a conflict resolution expert, for peace to reign, for us to move the state forward without skirmishes and other issues again, I think it is a time for everybody to be called in. It is a time for the House of Assembly to remain united, to be a formidable force in moving the state forward towards a good developmental position. because the state have really faced lots. People are suffering. The infrastructure is nowhere to be found. The roads are getting bad again. The ring road is abandoned and all that. So I think it's no more time. It shouldn't be a time again to consider whether Okojombo and Sokare are still on suspension. It is a time I think they should reach out and bring these guys in. Then also, on the part of Oko and Sokare, nothing stops them from attending plenary.
When they are suspended.
No, see, don't forget that there was emergency rule.
The suspension happened before the emergency
Yeah,
rule.
the suspension happened before the emergency rule. And it is believed that reconciliation
between the executive and the legislature.
Not
Not between a legislature and legislation.
but don't also forget that this reconciliation encompasses all stakeholders.
Did it?
Yeah, of course.
Did it?
Yeah, of course. Because before the reconciliation happened, stakeholders sat together, just like we advised that all stakeholders should come together. So, in my view, to move this state forward, it shouldn't be a time.
If it was encompassing, like you have said, probably there would be no need for these conversations. But then you would agree with me that reconciliation was between the governor and the FCT minister, which by extension also, got to the River State House of Assembly led by Martin Samehule. If you're talking about reconciliation of the State House of Assembly, then probably you should be talking about the factions in the River State House of Assembly.
Yes.
So one would say, did the governor carry his loyalists along in the reconciliation? It's one thing to carry your loyalists along in the reconciliation, and another thing to, just fight for yourself in this instance. Now, to a large extent, to the best of my knowledge, up until now, like you have said, they have not been present in these plenaries that they've held. I think the River State House of Assembly have held 2 plenaries so far, and they have not been present in these plenaries. And that suspension, to the best of my knowledge, has not been revoked by Martin Samehule, led State Assembly. So if that is the case, it's safe to say that the reconciliation was between the FCT minister and the governor, and by extension, River State House of Assembly, loyal to the FCT minister and the governor. However, the factional assembly loyal to the governor, it appears we are not carried along in this reconciliation, because I am yet to see them as one in the River State House of Assembly.
Lonisha, let's put this record straight.
Go ahead.
It is like a family thing, headed by the FCT minister as the father of the family, the governor, let's assume the first son of the family, and other members of the family, like the younger ones, the younger sisters, relatives, and all that, having issues. Now, that issue escalated to a point where their grandfather, who happened to be the president of the nation, stepped in and said, no, this crisis shouldn't continue, and he declared state of emergency. So at some point, reconciliation happened. So I believe, I wasn't there, but I believe that one of the subject matter in discourse during that reconciliation meeting should also encompass what led to this crisis. Where did it begin? The aftermath, the root, and all that. See, in bringing about reconciliations, you need to dig the root cause of the problem. If you don't dig the root cause of the problem and address it, then you are only baby nursing the problem to germinate again. So I am advising that the Right Honorable Speaker, River State House of Assembly, our big brother Martin Samehule, should call in these guys, let the sleeping dog lie, in the interest of legislating for the state, so that the state can move forward.
All right. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue. Do not go away.
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.
I will place economic stability and confidence
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.
access to our money we put in the bank. POS operator, she sent
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. People's Democratic Party has dismissed speculations of internal crisis, insisting that the party remains united and solid. National Publicity Secretary Debo Ologunagba made the clarification during an interview where he addressed concerns about alleged conflicts within the party. Ologunagba stressed that he was not at war with anyone in the PDP, noting that disagreements within the party were normal in any democratic setting. He explained that the party thrives on the contestation of ideas and differences in opinion among members. According to him, the PDP's strength lies in its constitutional mechanisms for conflict resolution, which allow it to manage internal disagreements without disunity. He emphasized that such diversity of views only proves the party's democratic character and resilience. What do you make of this position by Debo Ologunagba? Do you stand on that position that there are no more internal crises within the PDP?
I disagree with him because the PDP have refused to do the right thing from onset. So where he is saying that it is just a disagreement as to opinions of leaders, I completely disagree with him. The PDP on its own decided to do the wrong thing, and that wrong thing they did ab initio, it's what is haunting PDP till date. Until the PDP realizes that they are a party governed by laws and that they have constitutions setting out how their rules and modus operandi should be without favoring any section or anybody, then their house will be in order. But they claiming that their internal crisis is as a result of disagreements that can be resolved at any time. No, then all need to come together. Like the FCT minister have opined on several occasions. They need to come together, call a spade, and do the right thing according to the PDP constitution. Otherwise, the internal crisis in PDP will continue.
Ahead of 2027, do you see PDP being a formidable opposition?
Ahead of 2027, well, it is still premature to take that position
Election
now.
year is just barely 3 months.
Yeah, I know. It is still premature because the Congress is yet to be here. So let's see what happens. Let's give them time to see whether they will put their house in order before the National Congress. But if they don't put their house in order before the National Congress, know that PDP cannot be a formidable force ahead of 2027 election.
All right. But then PDP in its own has been saying that they are still literally the only opposition party that, stands a better chance of, giving the president a run for his money and his office in 2027 general elections. ADC, on the other hand, is saying that, they are here and they are willing. While ADC looks more promising, ADC itself is also saddled with its own leadership crisis as well. So what is your take on that?
Yes, almost all the political parties in Nigeria are saddled with leadership crisis. But the most important thing is the ability to navigate out of the troubled waters. And the only way they can navigate out of the troubled waters is looking at the provisions of their various constitutions, call a national executive meeting, and adhere strictly to what their constitution says. Like the case of ADC, we see a situation where the original chairman of the party is laying claim to the seat, that he was not carried along before adopting General Mark as the ADC chairman. And in my view, he has a valid claim. He has a valid claim. If the ADC has been adopted as a platform for coalition, there's nothing wrong in doing that. But he, the validly elected chairman, need to be carried along. He need to be part of that process. He need to be part of that adoption of General Mark as the coalition chairman
All right.
of ADC.
Fingers crossed as we round up 2025, and moving into 2026, the official election year. Even though to a large extent one would say that campaigns have really started quite early. Interesting times ahead in Rivers, not just in Rivers State politics, but in Nigerian politics as a whole. And you can be sure that we'll always bring you updates as it breaks. Thank you so much, Ndamzi, for coming. It's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much, Laurentia. Do have a lovely weekend.
And you too as well. And thank you so much, our viewers, for staying connected to us. And this is where we wrap it up on this episode of Open Conversation. We are open for sponsorship of the program, advert placements, news, events coverage, and commercials. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv, on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network. My name remains Ogu Laurentia. Transition news comes up next. Do not go away.
Representing people. Mr. President, my people are under siege.
I will place economic stability and confidence.
To condemn this act and call for the immediate release of this minister in the Temple of God.